Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And good day, everyone. This is Shayra Macaombao, and I'm going to discuss another data collection method, and that is field notes. So, field notes basically refer to the notes created by the researcher while conducting a field study. Schwand, 2015, explains that these notes help us remember and record the behaviors, activities, events, and other features that we observe in the field. Aside from describing what we see, field notes also include the researcher's personal thoughts and reflections. According to the article of Felipe and Lauderdale 2018, these are the researchers' private ideas, questions, and impressions about the observations and interviews they conduct. According to an online article, field notes are considered essential in many types of research, especially in qualitative research. In fact, Creswell 2013 mentions that researchers are encouraged to take field notes to enrich their data and to add deeper context to their analysis. For example, imagine you are observing a classroom or your past observations. Diba we tend to jot down things, jot down notes, diba, of what we observed. For example, sino yung parating nagpa-participate, or how the students interact with their teacher, and also your thoughts, your own thoughts. And those details, including your reflections, become part of your field notes. So basically, field notes are the data that we collect from our observations. No, these are the raw materials, raw details that we notice while we are out in the field, whether we are observing a classroom or a community or maski event or any natural setting. And these notes can be collected in different ways. No, pwedeng written siya, or you can opt to recordings. No, if writing isn't practical during the observation, you can do audio or video recordings, but you have to transcribe after and also describe what was happening, what you can observe in the video. And also, field notes can be written during the observation or after the observation. However, we have to remember that field notes should be fleshed out as soon as possible after the observation. Bakit? Kasi hindi tayo si Imam Shafi'i. So the longer we wait, the more details we tend to forget. So as much as possible, we have to review and complete our notes right after the fieldwork while everything is still fresh. As I've said earlier, sa isang field notes, we don't only include objective descriptions of what we see, no? We also include our own interpretations and reflections as researchers. And that gives field note its dual nature. Yes, field notes contain two types of information. First is the descriptive information, and second is the reflective information. So when we say descriptive information, these are the factual part. No, these are the things we directly observe. No, ano yung mga ginagawa ng mga tao, or your participants, ano yung sinasabi nila, the setting, the sequence of the events, no, everything you see, everything you hear. So that's descriptive information. On the other hand, reflective information has something to do with your thoughts, no? Your interpretations, your questions, and even your reactions while observing. So these actually where you make sense of what you saw or what you see. However, the descriptive content of your field notes can vary depending on what your research needs. But in most observations, there are few basic things you should always try to include. First, the physical setting. No, what the place looks like, how it is arranged. Any details that affect the situation, you have to describe them. Second, the participants. Who is there? Who is these participants? What they look like and how they behave. Third, the social environment. Anong mood ng group, no? What are the interactions? Ano yung atmosphere? Paano yung flow ng conversation? You have also to describe them. And lastly, direct quotes. You can do this, no? Whenever possible, you should write what the participants actually say because it can contribute to your field notes, no? In terms of accuracy and authenticity. But remember, when you're writing descriptive content, you have to avoid assumptions. Yes. Your job is to describe what you actually see and not what you think it means. For example, instead of writing, she was nervous, which is already an interpretation, right? You should write what you observe. So instead of writing, she is nervous or she was nervous, you have to describe it first. For example, she was shaking her leg. She bit her lip. Her finger was lightly tapping the table as she shifted her glances around the room. Her left blue shoe would shake every time she moved her leg. She had a look of worry on her face, her eyebrows furrowed. Now, after describing all of those observable behaviors, then you may conclude it was clear she was nervous. That is how you write descriptive field notes. You show the details first. You have to describe them, what you are seeing, no, and let the meaning come after the observation. Now, if you can remember, in qualitative research, you are the instrument of data gathering. The researcher is the instrument of data gathering. That means your own thoughts, reactions, and interpretations matter because they help you make sense of what you observed. This is where reflective content comes in. In reflective content, it includes your thoughts as a researcher, your feelings about what you're observing, your reactions to certain behaviors or events, and your initial interpretations or what you think something might mean. Let's take the example of she was nervous. Diba? That's an initial interpretations of what you're seeing. So, kailangan mo na ma-describe before you jump into initial interpretations. Because these reflections help contextualize your data. They show how your personal, cultural, and situational experiences shape the way you understand what you see. Okay, so if descriptive field notes has something to do with the details, no? The description of what you observed. Reflective content is not just about what happened, but about what you think about what happened. Another example. If you can notice, this is beyond describing what happened. The researcher is already thinking about why the teacher's questions matter, or how they affect student learning and what might happen in the future. So this is reflective content. It's no longer about description. This content shows the researcher's own thinking and interpretation. Now that we know the two parts of field notes, the question now is, why do we do field notes? According to article, the main purpose of field notes is to serve as the raw material for analysis. These notes allow researchers to go back to their observations, reflect on what happened, and draw meaningful insights from them. Field notes also help ground the research in the real lived experiences of the people being studied. No, they don't just record what was said, but how it was said. How people interacted, no? Paano sila nag-usap-usap, no? The setting, where everything happened. Because of these details, field notes ensure that our analysis and conclusions are based on actual, real-world experiences and not just assumptions nor guesses. Now that we know the purpose of field notes, let's now have the functions. Now, according to article, field notes serve several functions in qualitative research. First, they prompt researchers to closely observe their environment and the interactions happening within it. So, writing notes forces us to pay attention. Second, they supplement language focused data. This means they help support what participants say by also capturing what they see or what they hear and what they feel in the situation. Third, they help us document the sights, smells, sounds, and our own impressions of the physical environment, especially right after they occur. Now, while details are still fresh. And of course, this was because this can be supported by that statement in another article that field notes is the record of our sensory and intellectual experiences in the field. Fourth, field notes encourage researcher reflection and help us identify our own biases. Now, by writing down what we think and feel, we become more aware of how our perspective affects the data. Fifth, they facilitate preliminary coding. Now, helping researchers start organizing themes and patterns even before the formal analysis begins. And finally, field notes provide essential context for understanding data. They help us make sense of participant responses by giving us the full picture of what was happening at the moment. Now, if you decided to include or use field notes as one of your data collection method, you have to be mindful of these things. First, be accurate. It's because you only get one chance to observe a moment as it happens. So it is important to record behaviors, actions, and the details, everything as truthfully as you can. Second, be organized. So taking notes while observing can get messy. Definitely, right? Especially kung di ka sanay. So planning ahead helps. Minsan nga, they encourage researchers to practice before talaga sila mapunta or before pa ang kanilang research, before pa sila ma-deploy or mag-observe sa kanilang research setting. Third, be descriptive rather. Use specific concrete words to describe what you see, no? Instead of writing something vague like yung example natin kanina, no? She was nervous, very directive, very direct sa interpretation. So, you have to be specific. You have to describe first before you imply something. Next, focus on the research problem. Though it was stated that you have to describe everything, you also need to, you have to narrow down your focus. You have to prioritize the details related to your research question. And lastly, record your insights and thoughts. As you observe, you'll naturally form ideas and questions. So write them down in a separate reflective section because definitely or probably you will be using it later part. No, you'll be using it in your interpretation. You get that? All right. So let's now have the elements or the several important elements of a comprehensive field note. First, the head note. When we say the head note, this includes the date, definitely the time, the location, and any background information that sets the context of the observation. Second, descriptive observations. Again, we have two parts. So the first one is the descriptive. So here, descriptive observations, of course, the factual details about the physical setting, the participants, the activities, the conversations, the interactions, everything. Third is the reflective notes, no? Another one, the second part of a field note, your own thoughts, your questions, your interpretations or concerns that came up while you are observing. Fourth, or the sketches and diagrams. Yes, Sa field notes po, hindi lang basta descriptions, reflections. We also have sketches and diagrams, especially those things that might be difficult to explain in words. Fifth, analytical insights. Now, these are your early interpretations or initial ideas about what patterns or themes might be emerging. And lastly, methodological notes, which includes any adjustments you made to your observations plan or reasons for those changes or lessons that might help in future fieldwork. Now, here are the examples of field notes available online. So, as you can see, some of the elements you can see there, particularly the head note, the descriptive observations, the reflective notes, and the sketches. As you can notice, they have different format because accordingly, field notes have no distinct format. Nakadepende na sa'yo kung paano mo siya gagawin. Depende sa practice mo or kung sino yung i-follow mo. Pero if you can observe, itong nasa right, the white paper, meron siyang parang may structure siya. Kasi diba nasa left side yung time and then nasa right yung descriptions. And there's also another example na hindi ko nakuha yung kopya kasi masyadong blur. Pero ang ginawa niya, nasa taas yung head note, and then sa left is yung time, and then sa gitna yung descriptive observations, and then sa right side yung reflective notes. So, I think that would be all. I hope you get something, one or two, and thank you for listening.